Hello and welcome again to Oscar Mike Radio. My name is Travis. I'm the host. Oscar Mike Radio is part of the Hubazoo Network. You can find out more on hubazoo.com. One of the best things about doing Oscar Mike Radio is getting, to learn about not new organizations, but new to me, organizations that are doing great things in the community for our military and veterans. And tonight, or today, wherever you are, I'm joined by Mr. Tom Kilgannon of Freedom Alliance. Mr. Kilgannon, welcome to Oscar Mike Radio.
Hey, Travis, it's a pleasure to be on with you.
Thank you so much. I'm always, like I've said before, I'm always like not surprised anymore by how much I don't know. And I got approached and learned about your organization. It was really interesting how it got started and how, things are going on. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about the organization and how it came to be, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And again, thanks for having me on. It's really an honor to be with you and talking about Freedom Alliance, an organization that I've been with for 23 years now that I love, and it's a great place to be working with fantastic folks. The organization, we are a military support organization, and we'll get into how we're supporting military families and combat veterans as we go through the conversation. But we were started at the time of the first Gulf War back in 1991. And at that time, we started putting together some care packages and began some programs and really just got started that way. But as you know, Travis, that conflict was pretty short-lived. It was not in the news very often. So when you have an organization that's just starting out, after that, we went through a few years of, trying different things. And then I came to the organization in 1998. And just a few short years after that is when 9/11 happened. And that's really, I think, that's really where the organization took off and began to do some really fantastic work. It was unfortunate, to say the least, that we had to do it, but given the attacks that took place on our country and what was coming, we were in the right position at the right time. And so we went back to those early years and dusted off some of the programs that were put in place during the first Gulf War, refashioned them a little bit for the current cohort of service members going overseas. And since then, we've just been doing phenomenal work. As you mentioned, one of the programs we have is to provide college scholarships to kids whose parents were killed or disabled in military service. And I'm proud to announce that since 9/11, 20 years ago, we have now awarded more than $20 million to students who have had a parent who lost life or limb defending our country.
On one hand, that's a very sobering number that enough veterans have died that you've had to give that much support out, right? But on the other hand, what's it like to, say, a mother or father who's lost their spouse, knowing that you all have helped their child or their children be able to build a life with a college education?
Oh, it's a tremendous feeling and a tremendous honor. And we have the $20 million has helped more than 2,000 individual students. Now, those students are getting multiple scholarships. If they come to us in their freshman year, they're probably getting 4 scholarships. Some of them don't come until maybe their sophomore and junior years, but we're going to help them throughout their college education, their undergraduate education. And I'll tell you, Travis, we have had situations where our scholarship was the difference between that child going to school or not going to school. During this last few years during the pandemic, when kids were literally kicked off campus in the spring of 2020 and were uncertain about whether or not they would be allowed back on in the fall semester of 2020. And we were able to reassure them that if they were going back, their scholarship would be intact. It really was something that we were able to make a big impact in their lives. And it's not just the financial aspect, although that's a very big part and obvious part of it, but we try and get involved in their lives and be mentors and and help them out and give them guidance to these students, because each scholarship that we give represents a fallen or a wounded hero, somebody who gave life or limb for this country. And if we can be a positive influence in these heroes' kids' lives, that's what we want to do.
So where did that idea come from? The reason I ask it, a lot of times, the children of our service members, and I didn't serve in combat, but I've seen it where someone got killed. Sometimes the children kind of almost left out of the conversation or not really thought about until later. But it seems like, looking at your website, doing the research, that focusing on the service member's child and making sure that child had a decent head start was something that was ingrained very early on.
Oh, very much so. Our scholarship program was really one of the first programs that was put together. It was conceived by our founder, who served as a United States Marine for 22 years, was in the Vietnam War. His name might be recognizable to many of your viewers. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, somebody who, to me, is a friend, a mentor, just a dear part of my life. And Travis, so he was in the Vietnam War, and he had I guess the unfortunate but also fortunate or honorable opportunity to be a casualty assistance officer at times and going to visit those families who have lost a loved one. And so when he had to do that, it really impacted him. And I've talked to other casualty assistance officers who've done the same in the last 20 years, and it has a tremendous impact on them. And so Colonel North wanted to do something to help these families out. And so he started Freedom Alliance and started this scholarship program. And I know it's something that remains very dear to him and to each of us. Because, Travis, as I said, we're not just giving a check to help them with their tuition. We're trying to be a part of their lives. And if you're able to see, over my shoulder here, this picture behind me, that's one of our students at Arlington National Cemetery. That's Shelby Summers. Her father was Sev Summers, Sergeant First Class, who lost his life in Afghanistan. And that is part of an event that we do. That's a deliberate effort on our part to get these students together and take them to Arlington Cemetery, allow them to visit their fathers, and but more importantly, to put them in the company of one another. It's really the same thing we do with wounded veterans. Bring them together, because they don't necessarily know each other. If you're a child who had a parent who lost their life in combat, all the other kids who live on your street, that's not necessarily what has happened to other families in your neighborhood. So you don't necessarily know others who have suffered the same loss. So Freedom Alliance deliberately works with these students to bring them together, introduce them to one another. And we have found that they have made lifelong friends, instantaneous friendships that have so far lasted many years. And it's one of the great outcomes of the work that we do.
Well, that is amazing. And just, if I can for a second, Lieutenant Colonel North was honestly one of my heroes growing up, and why I joined the Marine Corps. One of the reasons I joined the Marine Corps. But it just goes to show that the people who lead see this firsthand. And so, speaking of firsthand, you've been doing this a while now, more than writing the check, like you said. What's it like when you see a child, go through school, say 10, 15 years ago, and you're checking in on them and you see what they're doing now? What sense of meaning does that give you as you go through your work?
It is tremendous. It is very fulfilling. It is rewarding. It is the kind of work that gets you out of bed in the morning, that allows you to rest your head easily on your pillow at night, because you've done something good and you've helped people out. And particularly in these times that we're living in, when there's so much conflict and strife and people finding the negative in anything that happens, the work that we do at Freedom Alliance is lifting people up and changing lives and helping them out. We're going to meet up here in the next few weeks with one of our early scholarship recipient, who is now a medical doctor.
Oh,
who is
wow.
serving in one of the top teaching institutions in the Northeast of our country. We have had several students who are now serving prestigious fellowships on Capitol Hill, working for members of Congress, um, because they are Gold Star children, and we were able to recommend them to that program, and so they're starting their careers in public policy and public service. We've had other students who have landed jobs with big recognizable companies, who have gone into nonprofit work, who are going into graduate school. And so to see them fulfill their dreams and the dreams that their parent had for them, it is so rewarding. It is so fulfilling to be able to help them out in that way and to develop real and genuine friendships along the way. One of our students just did a podcast with former Vice President Mike Pence,
Yeah, I saw that.
and was a first guest of his. And so, they're able to do these kinds of things, and they enjoy it, and they're grateful to us for providing these opportunities, but we're more grateful to them for being a part of our lives and helping us to see the kind of character they have, the kind of courage that they have, the very special way that they overcome adversity and see the good in this country, see the good in the people who serve it, and want to be a public servant just like their dad or their mom was, and to give of themselves, to share their talents with these United States of America.
So did you serve in the military yourself? I wasn't, I'm just curious.
No, I'm a civilian. I never served. Never really, to be honest. I didn't give it a whole lot of thought. My parents were. I'm first generation American. Both of my parents came from Ireland,
Okay.
and as I grew up, I did not have a lot of people around me who served in the military who were that kind of an example. And I have come to meet many families who do have that very long line of military service in their families, and it's something I wish that I had.
Well,
I
no, well, the reason I ask is a lot of times I try to tell my brothers and sisters, like, hey, there are civilians out there who've never picked up a rifle, never marched in time, never deployed, who are just as committed to your success as a veteran and their mission focus for you as you were serving. So I'm curious, as you haven't served, but you've been in this role a long time. You've had to personally grow and develop to really be able to serve effectively, right?
Oh, no doubt. Everything I've learned about military service has been here through my work at Freedom Alliance.
Awesome. Awesome. Are there other programs? It seems like there's some, you have the scholarship fund, but looking around, there's other programs that, Freedom Alliance also does that were very interesting.
Oh, yeah. So Freedom Alliance is offers a wide variety of programs for combat veterans and military families. Obviously, our scholarship fund is one of them. We've talked about that, and we have some offshoots of the scholarship fund where we get to know and mentor these students. And then we work with combat veterans, and we're doing some providing them with all-terrain wheelchairs. We're providing them with vehicles to help with their mobility. We've done some mortgage-free homes and put almost 24 families in mortgage-free homes. We've got some great partners that we work with. But I tell you, Travis, one of the really big and important initiatives that we're working on now is dealing with emotional injury, moral injury through recreational rehab. So what that means is getting veterans out on fishing trips and hunting trips and skiing trips and things of that nature. But once they're there, creating the atmosphere, the environment in which they can talk to one another, confide in one another, and help one another through that rehabilitative process, and not just the physical part of it, but the emotional part of it. And as you've probably dealt with over these last few months, the way in which our country left Afghanistan here at the end of the summer really had an impact on veterans who served both in Afghanistan and Iraq and other conflicts, quite frankly. And it brought up all the memories, all the difficulties, all the challenges. And so our team was on the phone almost around the clock for several weeks, talking to veterans and helping them through it. But those are the kinds of things that we want to help veterans overcome. And I know that the president declared that this war is over, and in certain ways that is true. But if you served in Afghanistan or Iraq and you're dealing with emotional injuries, the war is very much still alive in your heart and in your soul. And until we help veterans get through that, I'm afraid that this war continues. And I think that's one of the big things that people have to understand, is that just because the president has declared it over, because it's not on the front page, veterans are still struggling with it and still fighting it. And it's hard. It's not the kind of thing that is easily just put aside.
Just for everybody out there, if you would take a minute and define emotional injury and moral injury, either as standalone components or how they relate to PTSD, you know, because I've heard moral injury before, but I'm just curious if you would do that for us.
Sure, and I think these come up in the conversation, as you just said, of post-traumatic stress. It's also often referred to as mental health. I'm not a big fan of the term mental health when we're talking about these issues, but when I say emotional injury or moral injury, to a large degree, those are synonymous terms. And what they mean is it's an affliction of the heart, an affliction of the soul that prevents a complete rehabilitation on the part of the veteran and can lead to destructive practices or habits, such as drinking too much, drugs, activity outside of your marriage, things of that nature, which are going to adversely impact your most important relationships with your spouse and your children, your ability to concentrate and hold a job, your ability to live a healthy lifestyle and get along with others. And what triggers these kinds of things are what veterans saw when they were in combat. We send our best and brightest overseas, but they confront the worst that humanity has to offer, and they see things that no human being should have to see. And what we mean by that is very often American veterans have seen women and children used as suicide bombers, that they were abused, that they were tortured. They saw the results of torture. They saw the results of very gruesome deaths. They had to confront people who really had who don't value life the same way that we do here in America. And sometimes they had to do things which maybe they feel conflict with what they were taught in Sunday school, or what they believe the moral law or God's law to be. And so they struggle with that, and they come home and they ask themselves a lot of different questions. Things like, you have survivor's guilt. Why did my buddy die, but I'm still alive? You know, he had a family, I don't. I want to make sense of this. They come home after having been in charge of the lives of so many others, millions of dollars worth of equipment, fighting in really what is the greatest cause of the last half century, and find it difficult to have purpose in their life, to find something as important as what they did for the last several years while they were in the military. And so these are just a few of the things that they struggle with and question themselves about, and wonder, and it can lead to a destructive perception of their own self-worth.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to overcome, is to help them to understand that they are valued, that they are loved, that there are people around them who need them and want them and desire them in their lives for different reasons. And if they were to, do the ultimate act of destruction to themselves, that they would be impacting many more people than just themselves. That their life is valuable, and we want them to keep living it, and we want to learn from them. And Travis, if I go on just a second more. At Freedom Alliance, in what we do and the way we talk to veterans about these kinds of issues, we try not to place an emphasis on one of the things that you hear a lot, which is return these veterans to civilian life. We don't believe that that's necessarily the best thing. These veterans are warriors. They should be valued as warriors, because in that warrior status, they have trained, they have deployed, they have learned valuable skills, they have had experiences in a shorter period of time than most of us have in our lifetimes. And we as civilians can learn from their warrior experiences. And those experiences can help all of us to understand the value of life, the value of our system of government, the value of relationships, and that's what we want them to bring back. We don't want to relegate them to going back to civilian life and doing a meaningless job. We want to help them to understand that because of their experience and their training and their sacrifice, they have something very valuable and special to offer to the rest of us in society that most of us don't have.
That's a very interesting overview of my experience, even because I didn't serve in combat, but I was repeatedly told that you've got to, put away your military experience and quit doing those things and, be more civilian. And the more I tried to unplug from my past, the more out of sorts I was. I couldn't, it was very odd. So it's very interesting that you all tell us to embrace who we are. So is there a balance in how we integrate with society? Is it because I have to feel that there's a responsibility on the veteran side to be willing to engage civilians, but there's also the civilian side needing to understand that we're different. I mean, what do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. And in the seminars that we put together, the structured conversations that we have on our retreats for veterans, we have recently, in the last several years, begun to integrate civilians into those conversations, because we believe that both communities can help each other, can offer to each other some very valuable experiences. Now, when I say we're not trying to integrate vets back into civilian society, obviously you're coming back to a civilian society and you're going to hold a civilian job. You're not going to be an NCO for the rest of your life.
Right.
So you've got to go back into a company, into some kind of work that is run by a private company or government work. And you have to learn how to do that. But in doing so, you can retain your status, your personhood as a warrior, and all the valuable lessons that you have learned there, and help people understand it. One of the things is just the simple aspect of veterans trying to find jobs in corporate America. We find that veterans don't always understand the way the civilian workplace works, and the civilian workplace definitely doesn't understand veterans and the skills and the values that they have, and how they can help a company, how they translate into a civilian workspace. And a lot of times it could be as simple as vocabulary and nomenclature and how you talk about things. In other ways, it's how you perceive the veteran. But coming to understand that many of our veterans, even the combat veterans, they're not just trigger pullers. These are people who worked on logistics and intelligence and planning, and who took on tremendous responsibility, who are achievers, who have goals and who met them and did whatever they needed to do along the way to get it done as safely as possible, keep everybody alive, bring them back home. We can go on and on. It's just it's a matter of opening up the aperture and helping each side to see the value of the other.
Yeah, I chuckled a little bit during your last statement there, because I did a couple of those. Oh yeah, I'm not back in the battery anymore. I'm actually with coworkers. It was funny that way. You have this breadth of experience, and while Freedom Alliance is focused on the scholarships for the children of our fallen heroes, it seems like you have a perspective that there's the whole veteran. There's taking care of the veteran's family that's passed, the veteran that's been injured or gravely wounded in the military, and the one going through PTSD, or the one just trying to reintegrate back. I mean, I guess where I'm going now is after doing all that, what's really next for Freedom Alliance as an organization?
Well, I think, and you're right, we do have a variety of projects and programs, and the kinds of outreach that we were doing to veterans back in 2001 is pretty different than what we're doing today. Back then we're collecting up phone cards and sending them overseas so that you all could, make some phone calls back home. And then, that changed pretty quickly as very large groups of wounded were coming back. A lot of our work was focused on the hospitals and the rehab centers. And now, after a very large degree of troops have overcome or are adapting to the physical injuries, now it's time to focus on the emotional injuries. And the next part of that, and we're working on it, is helping veterans find purpose. And so as they begin to overcome those emotional injuries, we want to help them find what is that purpose, what is that skill set that they have that they can help in a different part of society, in a different sector, a different group, where they can really apply their knowledge and their skills and their passion to help out others. So once they find that purpose, boy, it's magical. It's the light goes on again. The desire to get back to school, or to live, or to give up a particular bad habit or something like that. It is it really is magic, and it's wonderful to see. But that's going to happen that's going to continue for a long time to come, because that's a big project. And but the need is out there still on many different fronts, to just continue to work with the vets who are physically injured, getting them these wheelchairs so that they can get out into the forest, into the woods, onto the beach, so they can participate in their recreational activities, working on the relationships between husbands and wives, because a lot of times the difficulties in those relationships don't surface until many years after the veteran comes back home. So that's a big issue as well. The need is great, Travis, and that's the most important message, I think, to leave with your viewers, is that the need is great. It's not going away. We are addressing it. Freedom Alliance and so many of our partners that we work with, I think, have really brought a lot of value to the national defense structure of our nation. I'm not sure that the folks in Washington have come to grasp fully the importance of the nonprofit community in the health and well-being of military families, but we have made a big impact, and that's one of the great things that has come out of the events of the last 20 years. That, and the willingness of so many Americans to direct their philanthropy toward our troops and military families.
So that was my next thing. You're doing all this, and just from my limited knowledge, I know that these kinds of programs don't fund themselves. you know, how does the fundraising work, and how can people help Freedom Alliance continue this mission?
Yeah, thanks. It's we exist on the generosity of individual Americans for the most part, and anybody who'd like to make a contribution is free to do so at freedomalliance.org. That's our website. If you go to our Facebook page and you look us up, you'll see really a daily compilation of the events that we're carrying out and the accomplishments that we have. And then we have that donation apparatus on our website at freedomalliance.org. You're right, it requires a lot, but we're also blessed with great partners. We've been working with an outfit called War Heroes on Water, funded by the CEO of Loan Depot, or conceived by the CEO of Loan Depot. And we just had 100 veterans out in Southern California for 4 days of deep sea fishing. And I'll tell you, Travis, it was amazing. It was cathartic. It was tremendous help to their rehabilitation, and they just loved it. And that's an event where we're able to get boat captains and crews donated to us. They all give of their time and their resources, and they develop very important, lasting friendships with the veterans that we take out, and are a big part of their healing process. And it has been a wonderful thing to see. There's so much love. There's so much patriotism. There's so much support for our troops out there across this country that we've got to find ways to bring more people into it, because there's a tremendous desire to help out our troops, because there's a great affinity for them, and we have to find those who are willing to help, and we have to convey and show that desire to the veterans so they understand just how important they are to their families, to their communities, and to their country.
Looking on your Facebook page and your website, it seemed like that when these boat captains and these people do these kind of activities for the veterans you serve, that it's almost like they get something out of it that they didn't get before, and they really want to come back and do it again. Am I seeing that right?
You are seeing that right. There is when a civilian participates in one of these events and has the opportunity to spend time with somebody who has deployed, who has been in combat, and have meaningful conversations, and when you're out on a boat for 4 days, and the fish are not biting, you have to talk, and you have to have good conversations. And the civilians, you're right, they get as much out of it, if not more, than the veterans themselves. And so that's one of the lessons there to the veterans. See how you're helping. When we sent you overseas, you were an ambassador of sorts for our country to these places you went to. You represented us well. You did so honorably. And now, as a civilian here on the home front, you're an ambassador from the military, the veteran community, to the civilian community. And you help us understand what military service is, what it requires, what the sacrifices might entail, and the challenges that you've been through. And so we bring that back to our organizations, to our companies, to our communities, so that we can make a difference and change things. And just to give an example to that, we have worked with a veteran who has been instrumental in setting up what are known as veterans courts, which you may have heard of.
Yep.
And these are courts of law with a judge and prosecutor and all that. And when certain veterans get into trouble, maybe with driving or in an altercation or something like that, sometimes, many times, that is because of their PTS, their injuries, the experience that they had in combat, which impacts on the situation. And so these veterans courts are designed to take into account those very special circumstances, so that fairness can be applied to all sides. And as one example, when you're in Afghanistan and your job is to get from point A to point B, and there's only one roadway, which is littered with IEDs, you become a very aggressive driver, right?
Yeah.
And so you bring that home, and many veterans have come home and become an aggressive driver here on America's highways because of their experience in Afghanistan. Because when they see a mailbox, or they see another vehicle, or they see it triggers a memory that they think it could be a terrorist, it could be a bomb, it could be a dangerous situation, and that impacts their driving here. And it takes them a little bit of time just to readjust. And so we should be taking that experience into account if, if there was a traffic violation, and we want to have a fair outcome for that veteran and all involved.
I've seen it in Tennessee, where it really helped a Marine veteran out. And I think there's a place for these veterans courts, and it's so good to hear that you support them. As we close down, I've gotten an idea of the mission and what's next. You've covered a wide range of veterans topics. I think the thing that I got out of this is, if you're a civilian, there's plenty of opportunity for you to get with an organization like yours or Freedom Alliance directly and impact a veteran's life. Is that fair to say?
Yes, we'd love to have the support of all the companies and civilians out there. Give to Freedom Alliance and help us to provide cars and homes and retreats for veterans, provide scholarships for their children, and take care of those who have served us so well.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Travis. I'm the host of Oscar Mike Radio. I am with the president of Freedom Alliance, Mr. Tom Kilgannon. I'm going to have the link to the website and the Facebook page in the show post. You can check it out. I just love talking to your kind of organizations, especially one that is boots on the ground, but in Washington, and really aware of what's going on in the community and how you all can make change in my life even. It's really been great talking with you, sir.
Well, thank you, Travis. The pleasure is all mine, and don't hold the fact that we're in the Washington area against us. We're actually in Northern Virginia, so we're over the horizon, you might say.
That is true. That is true. I mean, but the thing is, a lot of people, the reason I say is a lot of people sometimes think, well, if they're in Washington, they're out of touch, and you've got to be where the action is in order to advocate effectively. I think that's just my personal opinion, but
absolutely. And we work all over the country. Wherever the veteran is, we're gonna go help them. I'll be in Tampa, Florida next week, taking care of 2 veterans. We'll be in Texas in a few weeks after that, up in Minnesota. So wherever we can help somebody out, as long as we've got the resources, we're going to make it happen. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you. I thank you for your service, and wish you a belated happy birthday for the Marine Corps.
Tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, this guy is hitting all cylinders tonight. Again, Tom, thank you very much. I hope to be able to talk with you again as I learn more about Freedom Alliance and, take what I have and advocate, for the mission you all are doing. I just want to thank you for coming on. And as we say in Oscar Mike Rita, we are mission in flight. Thank you.
Thank you.